will talk on the approval of Title I district plan.
Okay, so every year, the school district receives Title I dollars. This is federal dollars paid through the state to help support at-risk programming for school districts. Students that are labeled at-risk in your Title I plan are usually your free and reduced lunch students. So majority of the services are this started back when there was no child left behind, and it was money dedicated from the federal government paid through the state on how you were going to help students who did not have possibly the resources at home or were considered at risk or were free and reduced lunch or homeless, how the school district was going to use this money to provide either additional services or supports to help them raise their test scores and get them to meet state requirements on the state tests like the ACT. So it's a formality that the board at least just approve or be aware of the Title I plan and the ideas we're putting forward in the Title I plan. So I'll have Kristen and Scott touch on these. They're all items that you're aware of. We use it for like academic support, HERO, transportation of homeless students. The unique thing about this is that this is kind of interchangeable. Again, one of those weird things about school finance. You approve this, and they could deny one or two of these things, and then we have to come back with something else. One of the other pieces of legislation that just recently got approved by the state legislature was they used to charge us an additional tax on any certified staff member that we were paying out of Title I dollars, and instead of just paying the required 9.4% or 10.4%, they used to charge us 30.4% out of our Title I funds, the state. TRS. But that new legislation was adjusted now so that if we wanted to hire a teacher to be a tutor or do more sections of Apex and pay for it out of Title I, we're not penalized as much. What used to be a trick of the trade for the schools with Title I dollars was trying to come up with ways to spend this money, but not necessarily hiring teachers, doing things like academic support or after-school programs, because you always had this fear of paying a 30% tax on any employee you used. And now with the new legislation, it will help allow us to maybe even put more teachers in front of some of these interventions.
Are we targeted assistance or are we school-wide?
Targeted. And you want to explain that, Scott, what targeted is?
That's why I put it in there.
Well,
Educators know what Title I means. I bet if we took a vote here, most people don't even know what Title I even. Title I of what?
this is the name of it.
It's money that passes on why. I don't know this is much of a plan. It doesn't say how we're going to, how do we request money, how do we get money,
I
how
just
much
know
money
that
is
part of that blue
available.
cab is Title I, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The blue cab bill.
So why don't we take the opportunity, because we throw Title I like everybody knows what Title I means, and I don't understand it. I'm guessing a lot of people watching don't understand it. So why don't we start with the basics?
Okay. All right, Dr. Skinkis touched on it. It's for at-risk students. Obviously, it's to close the achievement gap.
And at-risk students are,
Anyone that is
I mean, at-risk
showing
students,
signs, anyone that is showing signs of not meeting
suicidal,
standards, not meeting state standards,
okay.
or falling behind academically, either credit-wise or, I guess, attendance-wise, how you identify them.
But they-
And
those
the state lets each individual school come up with the specific criteria
And that
that
would be
they
part of the
use
plan?
to identify Title I students.
So-
So we use free and reduced lunch, we use students not meeting benchmarks on either our MAP test that our freshmen take, our ACT, our SAT, and then also students who are credit deficient as well.
That's the thing I didn't understand. It says we're approving a plan, but this isn't actually a plan. Is this the plan we're trying to
It's a
approve?
summary of
It's a
the
summary.
activities, so the board's aware. That's basically our
So you-
plan. Here's how we're spending
So
this
the-
money.
So the district already has identified a Title I population, and that's been identified years before. And each year, when you're saying this plan is to, you have bullet points on what you're identifying where you're going to target spending the money, because you've already identified that the population that we all in Title I would need these supports and that we feel comfortable we're gonna get the money reimbursed because, is that
Yes.
the overall big picture? So we're just getting a summary.
It's just a summary.
Of where we're targeting to get the
How
reimbursement.
much Title I money do we actually get
That's roughly 135,000.
out of our $22 million budget?
And how many students are eligible to be, how many fit into your definition of Title I at-risk students?
I would say roughly 45%. It might be a little higher because some students might fall into multiple categories, other students might only hit one category.
So when you say we get 100 and, would you say 130?
135,000.
Do we go and submit for 400 or 500 and the state only comes back and says, no, you're capped at a certain,
No.
what's the limit? Is there a limit?
It's all based off of a formula based on total enrollment and then your free and reduced lunch counts
Right.
at a various picture at a particular time.
So under this new funding model that was just recently approved, we could possibly see increase in our Title I. It's all this, that's why, even though they passed this new legislation, they don't know how they're gonna fully implement all of it.
But you just described two different parameters. One is 45% of our students meet our definition of at-risk, which makes some part of which you're going to explain, our program eligible for the funds. But then you said the funding is based on
Percentage of free and reduced.
free and reduced lunch, so there's, it starts with a complete disconnect then.
Right. We try to expand our parameters
Yeah.
so that we can use it on more kids.
And the state gives you that flexibility by allowing you to define it in a more broader sense. That's
So
why
they'll
you
only
come
give
up
you
with your
money
criteria.
based on free
Yeah.
and reduced, but they'll allow you to use the
You can
funds
use
for a
the-
broader group.
For different supports and implementation of different programs.
Kind of like the treasurer's office, a little archaic.
Well, again, I've got a little concerned. The statute says we have to approve a plan. I don't know that this is actually a plan.
So it's not necessarily a statute, there's people at the state that will say, okay, does your board know what you're using these dollars on? So it's educating the board on here's how we plan on using our Title I dollars for. So that we're not saying we're using it for academic support and they came here and did an audit and the board was like, we never heard of academic support or we never heard of HERO system. It's the checks and balance that the board knows what we're putting in on the grant.
So
And
we have no control on how much money they'll send us or we're actually eligible for.
No.
But once we get it, we're limited to spend it on the programs that we have.
Which is why we use a broader definition.
And so at the end of the day, we spend money on programs that would meet our definition of Title I that doesn't come from the Title I funds,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Like our reading program would be a great example of that.
Okay.
We only use a little portion of Title I and the rest the district pays for out of our budget.
So why do we spend, a lot of times you put these notes in the budget, that's Title I money. So since there's a complete disconnect between it, we need to know, the fact something's Title I is almost irrelevant when we're saying it's like an offset, right?
When you see that note in the budget, I think what we're trying to say is it's not coming directly out of our revenue sources
But you
or
could put
tax
it,
dollars.
if all the projects that you list here, how much would it cost us to fund all of these, do we know?
Well, roughly 135.
No.
No, he said,
No.
no.
If
If we do
you-
the
all
total
the
cost
things that you
minus
s-
the 135.
No, all the things that, if you take 40% of our students that are, we define as Title I, and all the programs that we're spending to help them with them, how much is that?
Gosh, I don't know. We'd have to go through in more detail because we have extended reading, we have sophomore reading, we have
Okay, well,
extended math.
it's a lot
we
more
have
than
CAP.
135,000,
Yes,
right?
a lot
So when
more,
we
right.
say this is funded by Title I, it's a jigsaw puzzle, because instead of saying that line, we could say this line could be Title. We could use it for anything that fits our definition, right?
Correct, and
We
at the
just
end
choose
of the
certain
day.
areas.
Is
right,
our
and at-
entire HERO tracking system paid for by Title I? Is there anything listed by our plan that we're not putting any dollars into? Is that, I think that's what,
Yes.
so it's
Yes,
like
but
all
at
of
the
our
end of the
academic
day-
support?
Yes, but at the end of the day, I think to Tim's point, we would still be advocating that we need these things. So if we took one of these things out of Title I and shifted something in, I would still be advocating
Oh, no.
to spend that money.
We're on the same page there. It just doesn't make any sense to say this is being paid with Title I funds, because you're just randomly picking what you're paying with Title I funds.
But we have to say what we're spending our Title I funds on, and that it has to comply with. the
I
state.
don't disagree with that, but if we're getting 135,000 and we're spending 1,350,000 to put on a budget line, this is paid with Title I funds, is just a random choice that we make.
Right, because
We could put it on a different line.
Well,
Well,
If we're
but
using
not
But you
some
still
line,
have
I
to
mean, not,
account- you still
not
have to
every
account
line, you
for
couldn't
it.
put it on the transportation line, you
Wait,
couldn't put it
You're
on.
missing my point.
I'm a little confused. How do we show it in the budget?
You'll see sometimes we'll get things, this is paid with Title I funds.
Like in the
When
one
we'll
we
have
just got?
discussions.
Yeah,
But the
I've
point
heard
is,
that.
we choose what we want to use the Title I funds, and they don't come anywhere near paying for all the things they could pay for, right? Okay.
we just have to justify that we're spending Title I funds.
Well, the
on
point
Title
is,
I activities.
I've asked questions about this, don't worry about it, we're paying with Title I funds. Well, I do worry about it, because Title I doesn't cover anywhere near what we could if they funded the whole thing. We're picking
I
a
understand what
particular
you're saying.
item. If we say it's academic support, don't worry about it, it's Title I, well, then what about summer school salaries? They could be Title I, they're not.
So like, I go back to my question, Kristen, so, like for academic support personnel, 2.4 FTE, is that total academic support? So we pay 100% of our personnel for academic support out of Title I dollars.
Is there a reason we choose to do that line instead of one of the other ones?
We do that one. For example, we used to do reading, but we were experiencing the penalty, and so probably 4 years ago, we shifted over to academic support personnel because they're not certified staff members, so we don't incur that penalty.
Okay.
So that's why we choose to do that.
And that's where we have all of our students that are necessarily struggling somewhat academically or need some help, they have to take an academic support class.
Correct. That also covers our credit recovery program that you heard about earlier tonight from Beth.
Okay.
Summer school salaries, for example, we do not cover the entire cost. We use a portion of Title I to cover the cost of students who are free and reduced lunch that enroll in summer school so that we can break even and offer more opportunities for students in the summer school. So you'll see the report at the next board meeting. I believe this year it's roughly around $6,000 that we allocated to that, and that varies from year to year based off of how many students that are free and reduced lunch enroll in summer school.
But there's a complete disconnect between what we're spending on what could be Title I and what we have Title I, so.
Correct.
I think it's a bit of a disservice to the board and everybody to say that's paid with Title I funds, because you choose. You could choose 7 different items here and we don't get enough funds for it, we just choose which is paid with Title I, right?
Right, no, I understand your point. It also helps with the accounting, should we ever get audited or anything of that nature. We can run a report and see, here are the things that we use Title I money for. But we can certainly clarify that moving forward.
Why don't you quickly go through your list, just so everybody's aware, and make sure, say we did this.
Hero tracking system, you've heard about that through Dave Mannon. It helps us identify at-risk students who have poor attendance, since that's strongly correlated with their academic performance. Professional development, this is used for teachers to attend conferences and workshops, specifically to acquire strategies in working with our at-risk students. So reading conferences, math conferences, things of that nature. Transportation of homeless students, we've talked about. Progress monitoring systems, so in addition to ECRA, we use MAP is at the freshman level to progress monitor our students. They use that system in junior high, so it's a great way to continuing to monitor their progress for one more year. And then System 44 is a reading program that's for students who aren't quite ready for Read 180, which is the software program that we use in our freshman and sophomore reading class. So we have some students that need some additional support outside of Read 180, and so we use System 44 for that. And then diversity and anti-bullying training. On October 3rd, we are going to have a company called Bulldog Solution come and provide an opportunity for about 300 to 400 students, as well as around 15 staff members, to participate in a full day of training on diversity, acceptance, tolerance, anti-bullying, and then talking about empowering the students to be change agents. They're often the first ones that really see some of the more subtle bullying that staff may not see, so that they can stand up and address that. We have a great culture, but we can certainly improve that, and that's one thing that we heard from the students last year, is to try to seek out an opportunity like that. So the students are really excited about that opportunity, and the applications for students that are interested in participating just went out today to students and parents as well, and those are due next week. So we're really excited about that. And we also do plan on having follow-up opportunities throughout the year to expand that past the 300 or 400 students that are participating in that.
So, Scott, there's no kind of grant or application we put in? Just, the state just does a calculation and sends us a check each year?
It's entered in the grant. I have to take the snapshot of this particular date, what our enrollment is, and what was our free and reduced count, and that's entered into the grant.
So we do have to submit a grant?
Yes.
But it's specific, it's just based on...
Specific formula.
Especially based on the formula, yes.
Okay.
The plan has been gone through with our ISBE rep. All the stuff that has been entered into the plan has been approved with as far as with the supports that we're going to implement. The only thing that is pending is the board approving moving forward with the plan.
As part of the grant, we don't have to tell them how much it's going to cost us to do all the items here?
Sure, we lay that.
That'll
out.
be laid out in the
And we
budget
gotta
detail
submit quarterly.
section.
We have to submit.
So what we're
quarterly
going to put
tracking.
on the bullets of what...
What
It's going to be a
these
lot more
bullets
than what
would
they're going
be.
to reimburse us that way.
No, we put down what the percentage, we take our 135 and say we're using 10,000 from our 135 to cover a
Hero.
portion of our progress monitoring system. We're taking 20,000 out of it, and we get to a total of 135. And then every quarter, we have to submit a
Submit
report to show that
expenditure
much
reports.
expenditure reports that we've spent that much.
Does any of these cost 135 all by themselves?
No.
Do two of them cost 135,000?
No.
Do less than the whole list cost 135,000? You just, hold on, you just told me that if 40% of our students fit our definition of at risk, and it would be a lot more than 135,000 if we counted all of it. So there's again, I'm getting a disconnect.
I mean, we have $135,000 to
Forget what
to
we're
work
getting.
with.
I asked
think-
what the cost
I think
is.
The cost.
costs are much greater.
It's
on
much
each of these
greater.
items.
This is just as a supplement
All right,
to
so-
the program.
So let's
That's
assume
all
for a
it's
So
not
for
gonna be.
example, how much does transportation of homeless students cost us a year, roughly? I'm not gonna, but what do you think it's gonna cost?
Total, but maybe 35,000 total.
Okay, how much is the academic support for 2.4 FTEs roughly?
About 59,000.
Okay. And the summer school salaries?
Give or take 6,000-7,000.
Okay. And the hero tracking that you're gonna allocate to, you allocate part of the hero tracking to this, or 100% of the?
Would be probably 100%.
And how much is that?
Probably be close to 9,000.
Okay.
The expensive one, I would think, is the MAP System 44 ACRA.
That's about
Oh.
35,000.
Acra's 35,000 alone, isn't it?
Mhm.
Well, then you got to go back and there's a disconnect in the way to our answering questions. If 40% of our students we define as at risk, that could be eligible for it, there's more programs than 100. You said there's more than 135,000.
Yeah, we have more programs, we just don't have
So,
more
Tim,
Title I money to
I
pay for 'em.
understand that. I'm
I'd
trying
like
to
to hear-
find out why we don't pick one program that costs more than 135,000 for all the at-risk students and just put one line item on there and track it against one thing, since we can't get reimbursed for all of it
Because
anyway.
it helps you to try to come up with some other interventions, some things that you can do, small things that you can do, like an after-school program, or paying for kids to go to summer school. So instead of just building that to it, I mean, we try to come up with ways to spend this money.
I would say the other big thing too is certified salaries would be the one line item that you could use, and prior to this, there was a huge penalty.
But there's
So
no
that's why.
penalty anymore, right?
No, there
Right.
is.
There still is.
There still
Still
is,
is,
but it's
but
just
it's
not as
10
big
point
as it used to be.
It's not a penalty, it's just you have to pay the
Pay extra, a
TRS
little
tax.
extra, yeah. And then all these items are directly linked to how we're going to use these in the plan to identify and put these supports in and try to assist them in getting back to where they need to be academically. So written in the plan is how we're going to use academic support. How do we use the hero
But
Here,
training
let me, here,
system?
let me, here, this is maybe, this is, Scott, maybe this is another way to look at it, all right? Let's say that we want to apply the 135 to academic support for the 45% population. That would be a lot more FTEs, right? Okay. So when we come and look at a budget next year and say, we want to cut out, we want, so these programs can't be, maybe there's a program in here that we're adding on because we're getting a Title I, that we can say, no, allocate the Title I to the FTE for academic support, and we want to cut that program out. I think that's what ultimately drive to what I think Tim's driving at, is that, are these programs added on, or are these programs that, because we're getting a Title I, and if we allocated the Title I 100% to the 45% population, this program would go away? That's kind of the way to look at it also.
Well, but, like, for instance, if my son was struggling in reading, we don't qualify for free and reduced. So does that mean you shouldn't academically support my child because?
So you just,
But that's why I was trying to get him to explain it. There is, one, we define our at-risk however we want to define them,
which allows us to.
which would allow us to use whatever programs we want for those students, which is be a lot more than $135,000. The state funds it based on their definition at risk, which is free and reduced. And all we need to do is submit enough information to get 135,000 funded.
Right, but if you get a grant checker there that says, hey, you're only submitting one thing to help your your at-risk kids, and you're only going to put academic support, we're not going to approve that. We want to see more interventions. So by putting more down,
Okay.
it allows us to spread that money across, and it gives us the flexibility to spread it across more.
Okay.
And help those kids who are struggling, who don't meet the free and reduced
Correct.
definition, like, right?
Right.
Well, but we're doing that already. We are addressing, 40 to 45% of our students fit our own definition of it, and the cost for that is much greater than 135, so we are funding it.
Yes.
I'm not saying don't fund it. I'm saying,
But when
Part of
Maybe
this
here-
is,
maybe-
part of this
here-
is playing the
here-
game to get
Well, here-
Can't say
the
that.
Title I approval.
Since it's
to
a
get
hot
the money.
button with Tim to begin with, what happens if we say, the board says, no, you cannot use Title I money to fund ECRA, and we need to look at cutting back on spending money next year? Put that $35,000 to additional academic support for that 45% population, and let's look at how, and then you're gonna come and say, well, ECRA's gotta be self-funded from district money, and we can come back and say, ECRA's no longer funded by Title I.
Yeah, it's probably a bad example
But
considering.
no, that's what, it's,
Right.
but it's not a bad example from the standpoint that that's an additional item brought into the budget because the argument has been funded by Title I.
You could use that. The big thing is the data that we're getting from there, which the board had trouble on, is helping us identify who truly is.
I'm just
at
throwing that
risk.
as, I'm throwing that as an
That's
example,
not
that's
the
a.
point.
I get what he's saying, and I
the
get what
point
you're
is you
saying.
keep saying, don't worry about ECRA, it's funded with Title I.
All right.
The way you're telling us, you could define Title I, there's all kinds of programs that are expansive available for the Title I funds. So we're picking, the administration is picking things and saying, these we're funding with Title I, so don't worry about it. And I've said all along, why can't we use the money for something else and not fund that thing?
Well, Tim, do you have an issue with any, so we have to allow our administration to make good decisions. So are you saying now that you have a problem with some of the programs that our administration chose, and that's what you really want them to do, is to not have any of something up here on the list? Because our administration is telling us they want to buy these things, and they got a grant.
But it's for the board to decide how money is spent.
No. The board hires the superintendent, he runs the district.
Come on,
We don't
Laura,
tell
let's
them
not
how
go
to
through
spend
that.
every dollar. No.
I'm not saying any of these programs are bad. In fact, I think they're all good programs.
So we're kind of crossing the line here, telling them how to spend every dollar.
No, we're not.
So I think
Yeah,
from
we're
a
starting to
standpoint,
do
when we do
staff business
going
here.
forward, scrubbing the budget, we just can't default on that's funded by Title I. We're
Absolutely.
gonna have, we'll be more educated now to say,
Exactly.
so,
So if Kristen comes to me and says, I want to run an after-school program, and I'm going to say, we're already at a $326,000 deficit.
Right.
And she says, listen, I have 10,000 remaining from this 135 I didn't use, and I don't use any different district revenue source except Title I. I said, if you can figure out how to run an after-school program without, that's how this kind of works. So she'll come to me, like last year, we had a history of a lot of students with substance abuse and having some issues. So we used Title I money to pay for a Rosencrantz counselor, an after-school drug and alcohol counselor. We didn't use any district funds, we paid for that.
And
So
that
she-
is
so
my
she spots-
problem.
She spots,
And it goes into the budget. What we need to know is what is the cost for all the programs that are available to the 45% of the students that we consider at risk. It's a heck of a lot more than $135,000. And then if we're using the Title I funds for a particular thing, instead of a not particular thing, that means the district is funding that out of its regular source.
right, but in order for the state to approve even that 135, it's got to line up with that person be sitting behind the state desk, not the board's desk. So even though the board might say, hey, under our definition, this 45%.
She told us that she
It gives us some
was-
flexibility to argue this to the state. But if the state comes back and says, you know what, this doesn't look like it's helping at-risk kids enough, they just deny it. Then we got to come and rewrite it or pick a different program to support.
And to Laura's point, that's what we pay them to figure out
Well,
what's
you
going to
could
come
keep
under
making the
state's
point, and I
umbrella.
don't agree with it. I don't agree that if we're defining 40 to 45% of our students are at risk, the cost that the district is paying to help the at-risk, which I have no problem with as a general premise, most of it's coming out of the district funds, not the Title I.
Right, but what we're asking you to approve is how we're going to spend the 135.
I understand that. That's what you'd like to do today. And for 7 years, I've been on this board, and people say Title I, don't worry about it, they pay for it. And what we're finally learning today is,
You
we
mean what you're
choose
finally
what-
learning today? Because I've understood this.
well then, great,
Well,
I'm
I have not
sorry.
understood it, so I
Okay.
really
What we're
appreciate
learning
what
today
Tim's
is,
doing.
there's all these alternative choices to use Title I funds, but we decide that we're going to use these. And that is something that should be made perfectly clear to the board, and I disagree with the fact that how we choose which bank account our funds come out of is an administrative choice. I think that, as Gary said, if, ECRA comes up next year and we say, again, is it worth the money? Maybe not. Then we say no to that and we use the Title I funds for something different.
Right, the board could do
No, I
that.
understand that. These are all things that regardless of whether we use Title I money or district money, I would be continuing to advocate to Dr. Skinkis that we would need all of these things. So in my opinion, whether it's paid out of Title I or not paid out of Title I and it's paid out of the district, these are all valuable things that we need in addition to
That
all
part I
of the other things.
completely agree with. What I don't agree with is for years we've been hearing, don't worry about that, ECRA's paid for
So
Title
we
I.
have, so you know what you spent last year, fiscal year 17 on Title I, right? The
Yeah, yeah.
Title I's
135,000.
a grant. that you get.
We have to like
Yeah, Well,
quarterly
we got
show how much we're
135
paying.
last year, and we spent 135.
but
Yeah.
but what
So we know
Tim's
what that
point
was.
is getting at is at 135, there may be things in there,
Well, I know, because
30
as we
grand
go
that could
along
have
and we
been
look,
spent into.
as we look at the
with
checkbook,
district.
they're like, oh, it's
Right.
Title I, it's Title I, it's Title I, because that's when you're hearing is when we're looking at the checkbook, right?
Right.
But
And that's
what-
where I want to, but if we know, I mean, I use blue cab all the time.
The
'cause
state
it's
could
like,
come back
we
and
know
say,
that's
well,
one of the ones.
do you have kids that aren't free and reduced lunch in your reading class? Yes. Well, then you should only have a portion of your Title I dollars being applied to that reading class. That's what you can start getting into.
Well, we understand that.
We understand that.
Okay.
All right, we never did do the resolution. Is that-
In the future, I think it would help, Scott, we put dollar amounts by each of these and kind of show how this breaks out and spends our allotted money that we are projected from the state. So the board can see this is accounting for this much.
we wanna-
Resolve the Board of
Yeah, but-
Education Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois hereby approves the District Title I plan as presented in the September 12, 2017 Board Agenda Packet.
I'll second.
All right, is there any other more questions left, right? No? Go for the vote.
Mr. Smithing?
Yes.
Ms. Towner?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Ms. Ruska?
Yes?
Dr. King?
No.
Ms. Sierra?
Yes.
Mr. Rich?
Yes.